She promised forever. Then I found the truth the first time I noticed the way she looked at me. It wasn't dramatic. No music. No lightning. Just a pause that lasted half a second too long, like the world hesitated and forgot what it was supposed to do next. We were sitting across from each other at the small kitchen table in her apartment, the kind with uneven legs and a surface that stayed cool no matter how long you rested your palms on it. Morning light slipped through the curtains without asking permission. Her coffee had gone untouched. Mine had gone cold twice. She was in her mid-40s, maybe older, but age didn't sit on her the way people expect. It didn't weigh her down. It rested on her like something earned. Confidence mixed with tiredness. Beauty mixed with restraint. She wore a loose sweater, sleeves pushed just high enough to show her wrists. I kept catching myself watching her hands instead of her face. "You're staring," she said, not accusing. Almost gentle. "Sorry," I answered too fast, then slowed myself down. "I was just thinking." She smiled at that, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. It never fully did. Like she'd trained herself to stop just short of wanting too much. We weren't supposed to be here like this. Sitting this close. Sharing mornings. Pretending it was casual when we both knew it wasn't. I was in my 20s, still figuring out who I was allowed to become. She had already lived through versions of herself she didn't talk about unless the room was quiet and she thought I wasn't listening. There was a rule between us, unspoken but solid: don't name it. So instead, we talked around everything. She asked if I'd slept. I said not much. She nodded like that made sense, like she hadn't spent the night on the couch because being too close to me in bed felt dangerous. When she stood to rinse her mug, I noticed the hesitation in her step, the way she leaned on the counter for a second longer than necessary. "You don't have to stay," she said, her back still turned to me. "I know." But neither of us moved. I liked the quiet before things got complicated. The moments where nothing had happened yet, but everything was already leaning in that direction. I liked the way she'd brush past me in the hallway, fingers grazing my arm as if by accident. The way she'd stop herself from saying my name sometimes, choosing silence instead. Once, I asked her why she kept doing that. She shrugged. "Some habits are hard to unlearn." I didn't ask which ones. She was careful with me. Too careful. Like I was something fragile she wasn't allowed to break or touch for too long. But every now and then, she'd forget. Her eyes would linger. Her voice would soften. Her hand would rest on mine just a second past what was polite. Those were the moments that ruined me. Because when she promised forever, it wasn't with words. It was with consistency. With the way she showed up. With the way she made space for me in her life, even when she told herself she shouldn't. I believed in that promise because it felt lived in, not rehearsed. I thought I knew her. Thought whatever shadows she carried were ones we'd eventually walk through together. Then her phone buzzed on the table between us. She froze. Didn't reach for it right away. Just stared at the screen lighting up her face, something tightening in her jaw. I saw it before she could hide it, the flicker of fear, of calculation, of a past I wasn't part of. "Are you okay?" I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was trying to decide whether to lie, or finally tell the truth. The phone buzzed again. And in that silence, I understood something was about to change, but I still didn't know if it would pull us apart, or finally bring us together. She didn't answer right away. The phone stopped buzzing, but she kept holding it like it might explode if she let go. When she finally turned it face down on the table, her fingers lingered there, pressing the screen into the wood as if that could erase whatever had appeared. "It's nothing," she said. It wasn't the words that bothered me. It was how quickly she said them. Too smooth. Too practiced. I nodded anyway. That's what I'd learned to do with her, accept the version she offered, not the one my instincts kept reaching for. She had a past that sat between us like a closed door. I could feel it every time she went quiet, every time her smile turned careful. We met months ago in the most ordinary way. I was helping her son move into his dorm. A favor for a friend. She'd thanked me, handed me a bottle of water, asked what I studied. Normal. Safe. Except nothing stayed that way. She was married then. Still is, technically. Separated, she told me later. It's complicated, she said, which usually means it hurts too much to explain. Her ring was gone, but the ghost of it lived on her finger, pale and permanent. I told myself I didn't care. That I wasn't crossing any lines. That I was just there. But being there became dinners when her house felt too quiet. Late-night conversations when she couldn't sleep. Long pauses where neither of us said what we were thinking because saying it would make it real. She once admitted she married young. Married safe. I don't think I ever learned how to want things, she said, staring at the wall instead of me. I just learned how to accept them. I wanted to tell her she was allowed to want more. I didn't. I was afraid she'd hear it as an invitation. As for me, I'd never been with someone like her. Women my age were still deciding who they were. She already knew who she'd been, and who she didn't want to be again. That made me feel both seen and invisible at the same time. Sometimes I caught myself imagining what it would be like if circumstances were different. If I were older. If she were free. If the world wasn't so quick to judge things it didn't understand. I hated myself a little for that. That afternoon, she finally spoke again. I shouldn't have asked you to stay so often. You didn't ask, I said. She looked at me, searching my face like she might find an answer there. You're young, she said softly. You should be out living, not stuck in someone else's mess. I shrugged, trying to sound lighter than I felt. Maybe this is part of living. Her laugh came out breathless, almost sad. You don't even know what you're choosing. She stood, walked past me toward the window. I followed without thinking. When she stopped, I stopped too close. Close enough to feel her warmth. Close enough to notice how her shoulders tensed, then slowly relaxed. I remember the last time I felt like this, she said. Before everything went wrong. I didn't ask what she meant. Instead, I reached out, just barely, and brushed my fingers against hers. Not a grab. Not a promise. Just contact. She didn't pull away. And in that quiet space between us, with the past pressing in and the future holding its breath, I knew we were already deeper than either of us had planned. The knock on the door came too fast. Too loud. She flinched like she'd been burned. We'd been standing there, still not touching but close enough that the space between us felt charged. My hand hadn't fully dropped away from hers yet. Her breath was uneven. The moment hadn't crossed a line, but it was staring straight at it. Another knock. Firmer this time. She stepped back from me immediately, like distance could undo what had already happened. Her face changed, not panic exactly, but something sharper. Guilt sliding into place. Don't move, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't. I watched her smooth her sweater, tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear with shaking fingers. She took one breath, then another, before opening the door. He stood there like he still belonged. Taller than I expected. Older than me by at least 20 years. Familiar in the way people get when they've shared decades with someone. His eyes moved past her shoulder before she could block the view, and landed on me. "Hey," he said, brows lifting. "Didn't know you had company." "This is," she paused. "Just a fraction. He's helping me with a few things. Not my name. Just a role." "Right," he said slowly. "Of course." The air shifted. Heavy. Like the room had shrunk. He walked in without waiting to be invited, setting his keys down like muscle memory guided him. He looked at the coffee cups. The time of day. Her bare hand, no ring, but the mark still there if you knew how to look. Something tightened in his jaw. "I thought we agreed to keep things simple," he said. She crossed her arms. "You said you needed space." "And I took it," he replied. "Didn't realize that meant replacement. I wanted to disappear. Or speak. Or do something that didn't make me feel like I was intruding on a life that wasn't mine." "I should go," I said. She turned to me too quickly. "You don't have to." But I already had my jacket in my hands. Her husband, ex-husband, maybe, but not fully gone, watched us both now. Measuring. "This is exactly what I meant," she said to him, voice tight. "You show up unannounced and act like you still get to decide things. And you don't think this," he gestured vaguely toward me, "is you avoiding them?" Silence dropped hard between them. I headed for the door, heart pounding thus too fast. She followed me into the hallway, closing the door behind her with a soft but final click. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For him? Or for me?" Her lips parted, then closed again. She looked tired. Older in that moment. Like the weight of every choice she'd postponed had finally leaned in all at once. "This isn't fair to you," she said. "I shouldn't be doing this." "Doing what?" I asked, even though I knew. She shook her head, eyes glossy. "Making you wait. Making you hope." I stepped closer without thinking. "You're not making me do anything." She looked at me then, really looked, and for a second everything else disappeared. No age. No past. No rules. Her hand lifted, hesitated, then rested against my chest. I could feel her heartbeat through her palm. "Please," she said softly. "Don't fall for me." I swallowed. Too late. Her breath caught. For one reckless second, I thought she might kiss me. I leaned in just enough to make it possible. Then she pulled away. "I need time," she said. "And you deserve someone who doesn't come with all this." She opened the door behind her. I stepped out, but before leaving, I turned back. She was watching me like she might memorize the moment. Neither of us said goodbye. And somehow, that hurt more. I tried to stay away after that. Told myself space would make it easier. That distance would dull whatever had started digging into my chest and refusing to leave. It didn't. Days passed. Then a week. I stopped going by her place. Stopped answering late-night messages that said nothing but "Are you awake?" I threw myself into classes, into noise, into anything that wasn't the quiet sound of her voice saying my name like it meant something dangerous. Then I saw her car outside a restaurant near campus. I wasn't looking for her. I swear I wasn't. I was walking with a friend, half listening, when my eyes caught the familiar dent on the rear bumper. My body reacted before my brain did. I slowed. Turned my head. She was inside. Sitting across from him. Her husband. They weren't touching. They weren't smiling either. It looked like a negotiation. Two people trying to decide what to do with the wreckage they'd built together. She said something, hands moving sharply, and he leaned back in his chair, jaw tight. I shouldn't have stayed. I stayed anyway. What surprised me wasn't the jealousy. I expected that. What surprised me was the fear underneath it, the cold realization that I could lose her without ever having truly had her. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Can you come over tonight?" her name on the screen. Like a dare. I didn't reply. I just watched her stand up, grab her coat, walk away from him without looking back. He stayed seated, staring at the table long after she left. That's when I knew. Later that night, I was at her door again. No reason. Or maybe too many. She opened it slowly, like she already knew it was me. Her face was bare. No makeup. Eyes tired. Real. "You said you needed time," I said. "So did you," she replied. Silence stretched. Heavy. Honest. "I saw you," I said finally. "With him." Her shoulders stiffened. "How much?" "Enough." She closed her eyes. Just for a second. When she opened them, something had cracked. Or maybe something had finally stopped pretending. "I tried to go back," she said. "Tried to remember why I stayed so long. It didn't work." I stepped inside. She didn't stop me. "You don't get to do this halfway," I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "You don't get to pull me close and then disappear every time it scares you." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I'm terrified." She walked past me, pacing like the walls were too close. "I'm afraid I'll ruin you. Afraid people will look at you and see a mistake you didn't make." I followed her. "You don't get to decide what ruins me." She stopped so suddenly I almost ran into her. Her eyes were wet now. "And what if I choose you?" she said, voice shaking, "and it costs me everything else?" I didn't answer right away. I reached out, lifted her hand, pressed it against my chest where my heart was beating too fast to hide. "Then don't choose me," I said quietly. "Choose what you can't walk away from." Her breath hitched. The room felt smaller. Louder. Her face tilted up toward mine, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath, smell the faint trace of coffee and something softer underneath. Her fingers tightened in my shirt. She leaned in. And right before her lips touched mine, her phone rang. Neither of us moved. And in that frozen second, I knew whatever happened next would change everything. The phone kept ringing. She didn't answer it. Just stared at the screen like it was accusing her of something. My name reflected faintly in the glass, distorted between her fingers. Finally, she turned it over and let it go quiet. "That was him," she said. Not a question. A fact. I nodded. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed something I couldn't push down. "You're not going to pick up?" She shook her head slowly. "I already did earlier. Before you came." That landed harder than I expected. "You did?" I asked. She looked away, walked toward the couch, sat down like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. "He asked me to come back. Not forever. Just to try again. For appearances. For family. For our son." I stayed standing. Distance suddenly felt necessary. "And?" I said. She pressed her palms into her knees. I said yes. The word echoed. Yes. My chest burned, sharp and immediate. I laughed once, short, humorless. "So that's it?" "No," she said quickly, looking up at me. "Listen to me." I wanted to. I hated how much I wanted to. "I said yes because I was scared," she continued. "Because it was familiar. Because choosing you feels like stepping off a cliff without knowing if there's ground. And now? I asked. She swallowed. Now he told me something. I waited. He's already seeing someone else, she said. Has been for months. He didn't come back because he loves me. He came back because he couldn't stand the idea of me choosing first. Something ugly twisted in my stomach. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just anger, on her behalf, and maybe on mine too. So he gets to keep his life, I said quietly, and you're supposed to put yours on pause. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I didn't know how to say no. I've spent my whole life being the one who holds things together. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. You could have told me. I was going to, she whispered. I swear. I just needed one night where you didn't look at me like I was already gone. That hurt more than the lie. I can't be the secret, I said. I can't be the almost. She stood, crossed the space between us. Stopped inches away. You're not. Then what am I? My voice cracked despite myself. She reached up, touched my face, hesitant, reverent. You're the thing I didn't plan for. The truth I kept walking around. I closed my eyes for a second. Let myself feel it. Her hand. Her warmth. Everything I was about to lose. I don't want to be your rebellion, I said. Or your escape. She shook her head. You're neither. Then she did something I didn't expect. She picked up her phone. Turned it back on. Dialed. My heart slammed as she lifted it to her ear. When he answered, she didn't soften her voice. I'm not coming back, she said. Not tomorrow. Not ever. You don't get to decide for me anymore. I couldn't hear his response, but I saw the way her shoulders straightened, the way something heavy finally slid off her spine. She ended the call. Dropped the phone onto the table like it no longer mattered. Her hands were shaking now. I don't know what happens next, she said. I don't know how hard this will be. But I know I can't lie anymore. She looked at me, open, terrified, real. I took a step toward her. And just as I reached for her, there was a knock at the door. Slow. Deliberate. Not him. Someone else. And whatever waited on the other side was about to test whether choosing the truth was enough. The knock came again, louder this time. I moved before she could. Some instinct to protect, or maybe to delay whatever reality was waiting on the other side. When I opened the door, it wasn't who either of us expected. It was her son. Early 20s. Same eyes as hers. Same way of standing like he already knew more than he let on. He looked past me, straight at her, and whatever he saw on her face made him stop breathing for a second. I figured you'd be here, he said to me, not unkindly. Just aware. She stepped forward. You shouldn't have come without calling. He shrugged. Dad called. Said you weren't answering? I came to make sure you were okay. Silence filled the space between the three of us. Thick. Honest. No place left to hide. His eyes flicked between us. Took in the closeness. The tension. The truth sitting there like an exposed wire. So, he said slowly, this is what's been going on. Her mouth opened. Closed. She didn't lie. Yes. That was it. No excuses. No explanations dressed up to sound softer. He let out a breath through his nose, something between a laugh and a sigh. I thought so. She blinked. You did? I'm not stupid, he said gently. You've been more alive these past months than I've seen you in years. I just didn't know it was him. I waited for anger. For accusations. For the moment everything blew apart. Instead, he looked at me. Really looked. Are you good to her? The question knocked the air out of me. Yes, I said. No hesitation. I try to be. He nodded once, like he was checking something off inside himself. Then he turned back to her. You spent my whole life choosing what was right instead of what was real. If you go back now, you'll disappear again. Her eyes finally spilled over. I was afraid I'd lose you. You don't lose me by being honest, he said. You lose me by pretending. Another quiet moment passed. Something heavy shifted. I'll give you space, he said, already backing toward the door. But don't make yourself small anymore. It never suited you. When he was gone, the apartment felt different. Exposed. Like the walls had heard everything. She sank onto the couch, hands covering her face. Her shoulders shook once. Then again. I sat beside her, close but not touching, giving her the choice. After a moment, she leaned into me. I'm scared, she admitted into my chest. I don't know how to do this without hurting people. I know, I said. But you're doing it. She pulled back just enough to look at me. I can't promise it'll be easy. Or clean. Or that I won't doubt myself again. I smiled softly. I don't want perfect. She studied my face like she was memorizing it for a future she still wasn't sure she deserved. Then she nodded, once, like a decision settling into place. Stay, she said. Not forever. Not as a promise wrapped in fear. Just stay. I leaned in then, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she needed to. She didn't. Her hand slid into my shirt, steady now. When our lips finally met, it wasn't rushed or desperate. It was careful. Certain. Real. When we pulled back, our foreheads rested together. I choose this, she whispered. And for the first time since I'd met her, the truth didn't feel like something we were running toward or away from. It felt like where we were standing, we didn't rush after that night. That surprised me the most. I thought once the truth was out, once the line had been crossed and owned, everything would speed up. Passion. Decisions. Fallout. But instead, things slowed down in a way that felt earned. She didn't move back. That part stayed firm. Papers followed. Awkward conversations. Long silences with people who had grown used to a version of her that no longer existed. Some days she came home exhausted, carrying guilt like a second coat. Other days she smiled in a way that still caught me off guard, lighter, quieter, real. We learned each other in fragments. How she needed space when memories crept in. How I talked too much when I was nervous. How neither of us liked making plans too far ahead, like naming the future might scare it away. There were looks we got in public. Pauses when someone asked how we met. Moments where I wondered if this would be easier with someone else, someone simpler, closer to my age, without history wrapped around every decision. And every time that thought came, it faded just as quickly. Because at night, when the world stopped asking questions, she'd curl into me like she'd finally allowed herself to rest. Because she listened to me in a way that made me feel older and younger at the same time. Because she never promised forever again, but she showed up every day, without pretending. Once, lying beside her in the dark, I asked if she regretted it. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced absent lines on my arm. I regret the years I convinced myself this kind of love wasn't meant for me, she said. Not this. I think that's when I understood what we were. Not a mistake. Not a rebellion. Not a fantasy. Just two people who found each other late and chose not to look away. We still argue. We still doubt. Sometimes the age gap feels loud. Sometimes the past knocks harder than we expect. But now, when fear shows up, it doesn't get to make the decisions for us. She promised forever once, to the wrong life. This time, she promised honesty. And somehow, that felt bigger. Some nights I catch her watching me when she thinks I'm asleep. There's still wonder there. Still a trace of disbelief. Like she's reminding herself she didn't imagine us. I don't know what people will think tomorrow. I don't know how long forever really is. But I know this, when she reaches for me, it's not out of fear anymore. It's choice. And if love is a risk no matter who you are, isn't choosing it, fully, honestly, worth everything? So tell me, do you believe love has an age limit? Have you ever chosen the truth even when it scared you? And if you were in our place, would you have stayed?